Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Tuesday, March 8th, 2022 regular meeting of council to order. First item on the agenda is item 2.1. That'll be the adoption of the agenda for March 8th. The recommendation here, if it pleases council, that the agenda for this evening be adopted as amended to include the necessary adjustments in item 8.4 budget requests. A couple things on page 2. Line item for the SCADA should be split into two, 17 and 13,000, with the remainder under that line item being 0. And then a general asset reserves, the remainder, which would be page 3, under general asset reserves, the remainder would be 180,000. Mrs. McNee is here to answer any questions when we get to 8.4. What's council's wish? Councillor Pearson, Councillor Blanchette, any further amendments? All in favor? It's carried. Item 3.1, adoption of the minutes of the February 22nd, 2022 meeting of council be adopted as presented. Councillor MacLean, Councillor Blanchette, any errors or omissions arising? All in favor? It's carried. Item 3.2, we have to adopt the minutes of the February 22, 2022 public hearing. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Blanchette, any errors or omissions arising from it? All in favor? It's carried. Under 4.1, we do have a delegation this evening from BC Parks, our partners at the Ministry of Environment. I'd like to welcome, please, Mr. Elliot Ingalls, Mr. Ed Hoffman, and Mr. Peter Gates to discuss the Berg Lake Trail status and rebuild plans. Gentlemen.
Okay, thank you.
Just make sure I know how to work the technology here.
You just have to flip it on the side there. Okay.
There we go. See, where do I have to point?
There you are.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Just around your head with some tinfoil and
Like that. Okay. So thank you, Your Worship, for inviting us to present to you this evening. And I'm here with, I'm Ed Hoffman, the Regional Director for BC Parks, Omineeka Peace Region. I'm based in Prince George. Peter Getz is the the section head for the Omineeka section based in Prince George as well. And then most of the people in the room seem to know Elliot Ingalls, the area supervisor for Mount Robson. And we're here to talk about the Berg Lake Trail and some of the events that happened in 2021 and our plans for 2022. Here's the agenda that we'll cover briefly this evening. Mount Robson Provincial Park, as you know, is a traditional use area for many Indigenous groups, or a couple Indigenous groups in the area, and has been for a very long time. The park is the second oldest park in the BC Parks portfolio. It's a flagship park. It's on the Yellowhead Highway, so it's a big gateway to the province of BC, and it's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The trail itself is a world-class backcountry experience that people come from all over the globe to hike. It's a good introduction to backcountry camping and hiking, and we have ongoing partnerships with many groups on the trail, including the Alpine Club of Canada. And all of these things require us to do a lot of management on the trail and to make sure that we keep it to the standard for those guests. The stats for, oh no, okay, I can go backwards, that's good. Okay, stats for the trail, it gets a lot of use, and the trail itself, peak season, there's 1,000 people a day on that trail with backcountry and day users. And so that just trickles down to the visitor center and the campgrounds and the community, and everybody gets a bit of a benefit from that. Then in last summer, we had a few events that happened. Freshet is usually between June 15th and the end of July. We had a significant heat dome that caused an unprecedented snowmelt combined with some freak storm events that resulted in flooding and washing out of the trail. We had 250 people up the trail at the time, and luckily we made a call. We saw that coming, and we worked with our park rangers, the park operator, BC Wildfire Service, the search and rescue, and RCMP to get most of those people out on their own steam, and we had to helicopter out about 30 visitors. The end result is that the trail is no longer accessible for 7 to 25 or 24 kilometer, and then the section from the trailhead to Kinney Lake is heavily damaged, and without repairs, we estimate that it would be lost in 2 to 5 years. Here's some pictures of the damage in the trail. Most of the pictures in this slide are between the trailhead and Kinney Lake, and the bottom center picture is the picnic shelter or the shelter at the Kinney Lake campground. Here's what some of our customers faced on the trail when they were coming out. This is a section where the river has rerouted, and it's very dynamic, and this is fast-moving water of varying depths.
I think we could say it. This is one of the more challenging areas on the trail. Like, a lot of day hikers make it this far, right? So this is the Kinney Flats, just past the Kinney Lake campground. And this is an area where the river's kind of at its most dynamic point, and it used to come under a series of 3 bridges, and the trail, or the river's rerouted itself along the base of the mountain, and it's about anywhere from kind of 6 to 10 feet deep. The Parks Canada tried to get horses through there and couldn't get a horse across. So it's one of the areas that, you know, is the biggest public safety risk because of the number of people that spoke to, 1,000 users a day. Well, probably half of those will make it that far in a day. So hence, it's from a public safety perspective, it's quite bad.
And of those, very few are like the Parks Canada employee that I met today that's been a ranger for 40 years and more fit than I am. So they just don't expect to, they're not trained to be in those types of situations. And this bridge is, this is the bridge at the base of Emperor Hill, or the White Falls Bridge. And you can see in the center picture, the water is up to the bottom of the bridge. There were times that the water was over it. And the rocks that you see in the bridge, some of those are the size of a refrigerator. So there was a lot of force going on there. And then more flood damage, a lot of overland flow and rerouting of the river. And Elliot was talking about, I think the bottom right picture is above Whitehorn Campground, but between Whitehorn and Emperor Hill. So the impacts is that we have 18 commercial operators or park use permit holders that use the Berg Lake Trail every year for hiking, camping, and climbing. One of those is Yellowhead Helicopters, who had some significant revenue losses last year. And then our park operator, Courts, they experienced revenue loss from trail and merchandising revenue in the visitor center. Regional impacts, and thank you to the village of Valemount for this information, is that it's about, that trail is worth about $2.2 million to the community in a season. And there's, McBride has similar tourism industry, but a lower scale, like a scaled down version. And so that's a big impact for the region if that trail is closed. So with that in mind, we wanted to keep the trail open for visitors last summer, and we made an attempt to do that. The park operator attempted temporary repairs, and construction was abandoned partway through the season because, as Elliot pointed out, the river was still very dynamic. We put in temporary bridges, and a week later, those bridges were underwater, and it would be up and down, and we couldn't get a consistent experience for the visitors.
So we were flying a bridge from the lower section of trail. We tried to, the river had moved, so we had a bridge with no water under it. We moved that bridge, we flew that bridge up 7 kilometers up trail and tried to put it across the Robson River at Whitehorn Campground. And we lost 30 meters of bank on one side of the river. So the ranger station there had water about 5 feet from the door. And typically it's about 30 meters away from that cabin. So we tried our darndest to get it happening again for last year to salvage, to help the operator and salvage the season.
And
that was middle of July, right? Normally high water would start to subside, and it got higher and higher as we continued to work.
Thank you for that. And during that time and after, we were like, okay, we need to go into rebuild mode. We hired an engineer to do bridge assessments on 5 of the bridges. Most of them had damage to them. 2 of them, including the iconic Whitehorn suspension bridge, is damaged, is deemed to be not safe. We also engaged University of Northern British Columbia and the Hakai Institute to obtain LiDAR imagery post-event and compared that to their LiDAR imagery from 2020, which helped when we hired MacLean to document the extent of the damage and assess reroutes and repairs and provide us some cost estimates and options for a rebuild. And this is an example of the post-event LiDAR imagery. I'm guessing some of you in the room might be familiar with that because you probably had LiDAR flown for some of the slide events near your community. And what it shows is the topography of the area. And this is, let's see, does this have a laser pointer? Probably, but I can't figure it out. But this is Emperor Hill is in the top middle of the picture. That is and towards the left side of the picture is the Robson River, and you can tell how big that alluvial fan is. With MacLean, we had them look at a couple options. One is don't open the trail at all. The other is establish it to a backcountry route standard, a backcountry trail standard, or front country trail standard. And what we determined is that we want to try to keep the trail as it was, where it's a front country trail from up to Kinney Lake, and it's accessible by the public, very accessible by the public. And then also from Kinney Lake to Berg Lake, that it's the backcountry trail.
Well, I think you'd like to understand, so the option of a backcountry route would mean that we don't replace infrastructure, meaning that people would have to sort of navigate the trail on their own, and it's too unsafe. We looked at it in every which way we could, and the route option, although it's an option to get the trail open, you're limiting it to a very short season after spring runoff, so you're looking at maybe the middle of August to the end of September, where the route would be safe to get across the water courses there. So with how many people visit there, the public safety risk is just way too high not to put in a properly engineered infrastructure.
And a backcountry route is no bridges, fording, water courses, which that river is a little bit too dynamic for that for a majority of the public. It wouldn't be that much different than the Moose River route, the back way in. So this is a map of the Berg Lake Trail, and we broke it down into sections to do the analysis, and also that assisted in some of our construction planning. The construction timeline for 2022, we're trying to fit between winter snowy conditions. We were up there today. There's still a lot of snow at Mount Robson. Yeah, yep. And then freshet, weight bands, load bands on the roads, and then we started a project which we need to finish to improve the parking lot at the trailhead, And then we still have to do some more assessments on bridges before we can start repairs and so forth. And which resulted in our reopening timeline, which is over 3 years. I just can't figure out that, like, the sweet spot here. Oh, there we go. Okay. And we're doing a phased reopening to account for the money that we have and the time that we have and the windows that we have to do the work, with the target of, well, 2022, everything's closed. 2023, we open the lower section, then the middle section, then the upper section. And those timelines on the middle and upper section may change after we get some more assessments and planning done for the trail. And last week, we did the communications outreach, and we gave notice to park use permit holder, well, to stakeholders, which included park use permit holders, partners, local government such as yourself, Indigenous groups, and the public via social media and internet. And then in that messaging, what we're trying to do is promote other recreation opportunities, both in Mount Robson and in the Valemount and McBride area, to encourage people to say, while Berg Lake Trail is closed, there's still other recreational opportunities that, so we don't see that big of, well, we try to lessen the hit for the community and the local area. And then I'm open to any questions.
Thank you very much for the delegation this evening. Motion to receive. Councillor MacLean, Councillor Pearson, questions for the delegates? Other stakeholders, maybe I'll start. Other stakeholders, obviously there's a synergy between Mount Robson Provincial Park and Jasper National Park. Some overflow to and from. How has the communications been with the partners over there?
We sent them emails last week with everybody else, and Elliot is in frequent communications, and I'll let you speak to that, Elliot.
Yeah, so I have a strong relationship with Jasper. I worked in Jasper as a park manager for 13 years, and so I communicate quite frequently with their superintendent and their visitor experience manager. What they're going to have to do is they have a trail of their northern boundary. It's a remote wilderness trail that goes from the east end of Jasper and loops back around and comes into Mount Robson. It's routed probably by about maybe 100 users a year, something like that. It's very remote. It's extremely challenging. So what they've had to do is close that area and take it by on the phone reservations only. So it hinders their operation slightly. They have a campground just on the other side of the border from Berg Lake called Adolphus. It's quite a popular campground, and they'll have to, it's basically, you can't reach it without using Mount Robson. You can come up a different remote route, but again, you're looking at a timeline of mid-August to the end of September in order to hike in remote wilderness. But they're super supportive of us. They're very helpful to our operation, and we try to help them where we can. They have a large workforce that support our operation, so we're in good standing with them.
Awesome. Other questions? Councillor Pearson?
Yeah, and you sort of alluded to it earlier, the alternate routes, Moose River route, is that just going to be controlled by a signage for anybody because it's kind of an uncontrolled entry?
Yeah, so it will remain the same. This summer, we'll staff at the Berg Lake area, we'll be doing work the entire summer up on the trail.
Right.
With our staff, we'll have a couple students this year that'll come and help us. We may rely on some volunteer work. The wildfire team we've been in contact with them, looking how quickly we can get this done. But yeah, it will remain the same. People will have to access it one way and come back the same way, or the alternate route would be going out via Jasper. Yeah. When this event happened, a similar event happened in Jasper, where they have an area called Twin Tree, and Twin Tree has a remote backcountry warden station and a big bridge that goes over the river there, and it also washed out, so they lost a cabin filled with rock. So I don't think we'll see a lot of use in those areas. Via horseback, for sure. The Moose River route, we have a couple permittees that will continue to operate, and they communicate with me when they're going out as just sort of a safety measure, so.
And it'll be an out-back trip rather than historically it's, maybe they've done a loop where they go up one and down Burkway Trail, and they'll just have to not use that Burkway Trail section.
And level of use up there, we we'd get 100 users in a season up the Moose River route, and you'd maybe see 4 or 5 horse trips, a couple private, and a few, maybe 3 or 4 guided trips with local folks. So they will continue to operate, and they'll support us in doing work in that area. They always do. And that area is all unbridged crossing, so we call it a remote wilderness route.
Right.
So again, like even on horseback, you're not really getting in there till August, till the water levels subside. Yeah. And our biggest issue, right, is what's going to happen in the spring. So our snowpack, we're at about 140%. So it's a high snowpack. And I mean, the weather's been consistently warm. So hopefully the snow melts gradually. But I think in the spring, by the time we hit kind of May long weekend, when the trail will typically open, until the middle of July, we'll probably see some unprecedented flooding again, and that's what we're preparing for. We're going to pull all the infrastructure out in the spring, put it off to the side, move some of it around so we can protect it, and we're just going to let, nature take its course, because it's not finished doing what it's going to do up there. It's going to move a lot of material down, and, so even if we had millions and millions and millions of dollars, we just can't possibly deal with what nature's going to throw at us. And really, I don't think the water subsided till the middle of August last year. Which
one picture in there is from late August, and it looks like it's still in flood because the water's just flowing across the ground. The channels are all full, forcing the river just to basically run over ground. And really that's part of the slowdown, where we have to just slow down, because until we know where the river's going to land, which will hopefully happen this next freshet, it's really dynamic, and we can start making plans right now to put a bridge here. Now, after freshet, the river's changed its mind, and I'm not going back to the old channel, I'm not in the new channel, I'm going to go somewhere in between. So really, and that's what the engineers have to wait for a little bit too. So they can't get a whole lot of work done in designing bridges until the freshet subsides this coming year, and that'll really be the telltale time for what we're dealing with.
Well, and I'm super appreciative of a public safety standpoint, as with the heat of the day that comes at 4 p.m., you won't know anything that's happening until about 10, 11 o'clock at night, and, well beyond dark by then.
Yeah, and you don't want to have we had a number of campsites that were underwater this spring, and you could have that happen again. And like you said, your worship, in the middle of the night, people's tents are getting wet and they're in the water.
Yeah, it was quite a terrifying experience for people. I mean, and it wasn't, you're not getting wet, like tent pads 5 feet underwater, walking through water this deep. And I don't think, pictures don't really do it justice. It's you kind of have to see it to believe it, and it was like nothing I'd ever experienced.
Well, when I see this picture, on the first slide, when I saw that picture, I just went, oh my goodness, what are they doing there? It's just unsafe. It was my biggest concern and reaction, and that's
the search and rescue people and the park staff did an amazing job getting everybody out, because that water is super cold, just coming off the snow melt.
Yeah.
When you're hiking in that, you start to lose sense of feeling in your feet. They don't work as well. You slip a bit more. The whole fact that everybody made it out with really no serious incidences at all, and as everybody's aware, we've had 2 drownings out at Mount Robson in the last 4 or 5 years. One slip in that cold water, and you're probably dealing with a fatality too. So you'll see the one bridge there that Willie's standing on. I think at one point we actually put a rope on the other side, just taking every precaution we can so that there'll be 2 handholds if you're going across it. And at times the river was touching the bottom of the bridges and a few of the bridges, and from highway bridges around here, that's when they start to get closed and deemed unsafe, and yeah, staff did a great job of getting everybody out, and I mean staff, it's wildfire staff too, and the search and rescue, and then RCMP support as well.
Excellent. Further questions, comments, council? Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. I really appreciate taking me up on my invitation and joining us this evening to give us the breakdown of what the next couple of years looks like for the Berg Lake Trail. Again, the gem of our tourism industry. And looking forward to, well, not looking forward to, saw some really good news in the provincial budget. So hopefully those dollars are going to where it is needed. And that is our second oldest provincial park. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments, council at all? All in favor of receipt? It's carried. Now, gentlemen, don't feel it absolutely necessary to stay. If you want, I mean, we'll be debating budgets this evening, so you're more than welcome to stay. You're more than welcome to go.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. We're going to take our leave and go back in now.
We do appreciate the offer.
I'll watch it on YouTube.
So 6.1, under correspondence for action, we have a Valemount Senior Citizens Society request for a letter of support. Councillor Pearson.
Can recuse myself as I'm a member of the board.
Thank you.
I also have to recuse myself. I'm on the board.
We will not achieve quorum. Don't worry about it, Pete. Councillor Pearson, we won't achieve quorum, so we'll have to put this,
Is there a time?
we'll have to table this.
Yeah.
Is this time sensitive, the request?
Probably. Nothing we can do about it tonight, though. On to the reading file, there's only one item in the reading file. Does anybody want to bring the COVID province-wide restrictions to the surface? Anything catch their eye? Administrative reports, 8.1, building inspection reports for January and February 22. The report be received for information. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor MacLean, any discussion? All in favor? Carried. 8.2, bylaw enforcement summary report, February 2022. That the report be received for information. Councillor MacLean, Councillor Blanchette, a discussion. All in favor? It's carried. Under 8.3, we have a childcare BC New Spaces Fund for Fifth Avenue Daycare Affordable Housing Project.
I'll step out as I'm chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Couple recommendations before us that council approves. One recommendation before us in two halves that the council approves the security deposit for development permit 2101 to be paid in two installments as follows: $478,744 to be paid by BC Housing prior to the issuance of DP 2101, and $239,372 to be paid out of the BC Childcare BC New Spaces funding upon release of the second advance of funding. Councillor Pearson, Councillor MacLean, discussion. All in favor? It's carried. It was carried.
Thank you.
Much debate, though.
I can imagine.
for? Didn't want to delay.
It's gonna, 8.4. 2022 budget request, I would suggest we get the recommendations on the floor and then open it to debate. Our Director of Finance is here to answer any questions from the podium, should council have any questions. So the recommendation that council approve the following budget items for the 2022 fiscal year. Number 1, development cost charges bylaw upgrades, 55,000. Number 2, garbage truck replacement, 150,000. Number 3, entrance sign partial rebuild, 100,000. Number 4, airport crack ceiling, 30,000. 5, road crack sealing for 50,000. Number 6, road patching for 100,000. 7, municipal building furnace and AC replacements, 40,000. 8, community hall generator, 32,550. Number 9, municipal hall generator, 150,000. Number 10, municipal hall security upgrades for 40,000. Number 11, wood stove exchange program for 3,500. Number 12, water pump house high lift pump for 70,000. 13, water treatment plant valves for 30,000. 14, Swift Creek restorations, 253,000. 15, sewer treatment plant clarifier rebuild of 40,000. 16, lift station pumps, 50,000. 17, sewer line grouting for 30,000. And 18, supervisory control and data acquisition upgrades will be split into 17 and 13, still being 30,000, but we'll get there. Is there a mover on that? Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson. Again, we have our Director of Finance for any, that is available for any questions. Councillor Blanchette?
So I have a question about the entrance sign. It says the $100,000 for a partial improvement. Is it maybe something we should look at, just getting a new kind of sign, something, because we've put in a lot of money to upgrade this and keep it going, and now another $100,000 for a partial fix?
Absolutely. Public Works has come back, and I believe they would prefer metal, as it will last longer, and it's something council can definitely look at.
Okay, that would be,
I feel like we could keep the budget for that and come back with another report on some options.
I would like to see, I know that Councillor Pearson wants to add something too. I would just, for myself, like to see that that money gets spent on a sign that we're not going to have to do too much to. That's what I would.
Steals through the roof right now. Sorry. Councillor Pearson.
Yeah, no, I agree with Councillor Blanchette, and my concern too is in looking at a redesign to eliminate the blind spot on that intersection. I've had concerns. It's not bad in the winter until the flowers are blooming in the flower bed, but that whole corner is a total blind spot, and that intersection's dangerous enough without having to try and wiggle out there to get to see past it. So I'd love to see a redesign on the footprint of it.
It's not in fall down stage right now, though, eh? Or is it base rot?
The wood is rotting at the base of it.
Okay, so it is in fall down stage.
So we're going to need to get that addressed, PQ.
Yep.
Does council agree we can keep that in the budget and then staff could come back with a report on options for it then?
I would, yeah.
Yep, it'll remain, I think, unless somebody's got.
The cost may change, of course, but.
But at least we have that put in there for.
I mean, at least it's there. If not for the partial rebuild, you'll have some removal dollars and we'll have something else to consider.
I believe, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say too, in light of current events, wood may be somewhat cheaper than steel at this point, so.
Could be some recycled something.
Something, yes.
Yeah, a resin or a 3D printer or something.
There you go.
I can buy a pretty good 3D printer for $100 grand. It'll actually build houses. Anything else, Councillor Pearson?
Yeah, I'm just curious with the garbage truck replacement, if we have looked at leasing versus purchase. most major corporations, companies do not own a vehicle they drive. It's all leases. They turn them over at the end of the lease, and you don't have the depreciation cost as an owner. I'm just wondering if that's something that could be considered versus an outright purchase. And I'm not sure what supply and demand is going to be like for a garbage truck right now.
Does a garbage truck fall under different rules for leasing as opposed to?
And staff has started to review a leasing option as well with that. Supply is limited.
I did find one in Virginia. We'd go for a road trip. 150. What I would, on that, Councillor, would you still be in favor of the budget for purchase, even though if we went to a lease, we'd still have the remaining budget going back into surplus?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we should just explore the option.
Yep, for sure. Lease. Councillor Blanchette?
We're talking about the white garbage truck, correct? We bought that, when did we buy that?
7, 8 years ago?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, and we bought it new.
we did.
Okay, so it's lasted 7 years. And how much did we pay for it?
I believe it was 125.
Okay, so 125 divided by 7. So,
One of the things, garbage trucks get a lot of hours. They don't get a lot of mileage, but what they do get is a lot of idle hours, which is horrible for an engine. So on average, that garbage truck probably goes about 3.5, 4, maybe 5 kilometers per hour. And so your engine hours will be way higher than your mileage, and it's,
so you can't really compare the.
Yeah.
Okay.
And mechanics at the dump for it.
yeah, I mean, so many moving parts in that thing.
Okay.
But I do love that lease option. Councillor Pearson,
Is electric an option?
it's always an option.
Idle time doesn't affect an electric, the same as it does a gas engine.
It certainly does not.
All they're checking, right?
And some serious battery improvements being tested in Michigan, or Minnesota, Michigan, in December, was getting 650, 700 miles on a charge. Further questions, adjustments?
May I just make a comment for council? This is just a reminder that everything that's approved tonight or not approved will still have the option to be amended at a later date. The process is that a 5-year financial plan bylaw will be brought back to the next council meeting for first and second. After that, a public review process will happen, and any public comments will be brought back forward to council. It'll be brought back for third reading and then adoption. So there's still plenty of time to amend anything and anything that comes up from the public.
What I am really appreciative of this particular start to the budget is there's a lot of focus on the unsexy, the stuff that's under the ground. People don't see it. It's not a new slide or a new flower pot. It's some really necessary maintenance and maintenance upgrades and replacements as part of our asset management plan.
And as always, staff always looks for grants that come up throughout the year. So anything that isn't already associated to a grant, we're still looking.
Councillor Blanchette?
The $3,500 for the wood stove exchange program. Is that to have, that $3,500 is strictly just to have them certified once they've been installed?
That was what council had discussed at a
Okay.
previous council meeting. So I had brought it forward for
And
approval.
$3,500 was enough to cover the amount of stoves that we were gonna have in circulation, right?
I believe so.
Okay.
That would be a premium on insurance for the inspector to, whomever's inspecting it, to carry that.
With that wood stove exchange, it will be brought forward to council again because we will have to have some rules and regulations set aside for it. So just for council's approval on that going forward.
Anything catch anybody's eye further?
Two are good.
Thank you very much, Mrs. McNee.
Thank you for your time.
All in favor? Recommendations are carried. 8.5, Columbia Basin Trust Community Initiatives and Affected Areas Program, CIP, AAP, Adjudication Committee Member Vacancy. A couple of recommendations here that the Adjudication Committee proceed through this year with the 5 community members. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor MacLean. Discussion. I think they'll do an outstanding job. All in favor? It's carried. And 2, that the amended terms of reference for the CBT, CIP, AAP Adjudication Committee be approved. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor MacLean. Discussion on the amended terms. Councillor Pearson?
Is this a short term, or are we looking forward at leaving it flexible as far as the number on the committee?
Ms. Shepherd, did you have anything from staff?
I did discuss it briefly with Tracy, she's the staff member involved. We could keep the terms of reference the way it would, that way. So we have up to so many community members on it, similar to the Clean Air Task Force, just so we don't pigeonhole ourselves. If we come across this situation next season, instead of bringing the terms of reference back, if we feel there's not enough members and there's a concern, we then bring the report back, leave the terms of reference.
So keeping the terms flexible enough for an up to versus a set X amount of.
Correct. And then just use staff's judgment and council's direction if we feel there's a need to change it.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Councillor Blanchette?
Just a reminder that it is online to go and view all of the applicants and to vote. And they are oversubscribed this year, so really read all of the bios about everything and choose accordingly.
Good point, good reminder. All in favor? It's carried. We have, under 8.6, we have a development variance permit at 2202 for 1100 Main Street. And there is a recommendation that initial approval be given to the proposed development variance permit 2202 for 1100 Main Street, legally described as Lot A, District Lot 9778, District Caribou District Plan EPP 68609, to decrease the minimum setback from 1 meter to 0 meters in order to accommodate a roof overhang. Councillor Blanchette? Councillor Pearson? Discussion? Initially, I had envisioned an overhang going into a power line, however, it's on the other side of the street. And I know there might not be a response, but a lot of this is being, the increase in overhang is to decrease the amount of snow that's on the sidewalk. I'm just wondering if we can get a Q&A from the applicant for next council meeting for any considerations around snow stop material on the roof to prevent snow from collapsing down in one big rush versus an overhang, or if it's just critically necessary that the overhang need to be there. Councillor Pearson?
And I think in looking at the property and the layout, it's significantly below street level on that side, so I was a little concerned when I read 0 setback as well, but in looking at it, I don't think it's probably a huge concern the way that property is set out.
Yeah. Well, like for snow removal and drainage and things like that. Yeah. Hate to clip the overhang, wouldn't you? All in favor? It's carried. Nothing under bylaws and policies this evening. Don't believe there's any new business. Are there any notices of motion to be brought forward to council? None. On to council reports. Councillor MacLean.
I only had one thing, and that was this morning. I actually had two meetings this morning. The Columbia River Treaty Local Government Committee. We're meeting with the modernized CRT governance design team to discuss the committee's interests in the governance process for the modernized Columbia River Treaty. And then following that meeting, we went into a local government committee meeting to discuss what had been discussed.
It has to be done. Councillor Pearson.
Actually, it was pretty quiet up until yesterday. Had the Rural Personal Health Records collaborative group call talking about My Health Key, and it's gone live date in December for people to register for a My Health Key, which is a personal health records portal where you have access to your personal health records directly, and with increased functionality, you will be able to book appointments with the physician of your choice online as well. So it's been an exciting process. Valemount is the flagship location to get this going, and they're now looking to move into, I think it's 6 different communities with a similar project. So
Super exciting.
again, we're
Yeah.
breaking barriers.
Right on. That's really cool.
In the afternoon, sat in on the Valemount Community Forest, Valemount Industrial Park meeting, 4 meetings in one. You get your money's worth at those. And then earlier this afternoon, the NERD group, which is Northern, I can never get this acronym right, Northern Interior Rural
Vision of
Development
Family
Community Collaborative again, and it deals with staffing and other things within the region. So, and that was it for me.
Thank you. Councillor Blanchette.
On the 28th, I met with Rashmi and some other local individuals that are working on housing, and we discussed the residence survey. It was really neat to find out who's having what issues, and as we all know, they're all pretty bad issues. We're all in crisis and we're looking for stuff. But as Councillor Pearson mentioned, we had our NERD meeting today, and it's really quite interesting because we are, like he said, the flagship, and everybody's jumping on board now. And now they're talking about us in the ministry in a good way. So that's exciting. Just putting that in there, yeah. So that's really exciting because people are listening and saying, oh, Valemount, you know, so it's exciting, you know.
Pleases me to no end that they're at least listening to this section of the, or this subject matter. Gets them excited.
Well, you get them talking about that, and then you can slide in something else that may not be as exciting.
Yeah, pre-hospital emergency medicine, things like that. What's the biggest difference, Councillor Pearson, between, oh, maybe I'll wait until the end, but I'll, was there anything further, Councillor? Sorry. February 23rd, had some prep work with the Southeast BC Connectivity Committee. We've got an upcoming meeting with the Ministry of Citizen Services. Had a fire smart discussion with, on February 25th with Wildfire Protection Officer Darren Summerhays, looking to do like a collaboration in communication with our monthly mailouts. So getting some fire smart paperwork out to folks on how they can better protect themselves and their neighbors. On the 28th, I had a meeting with all the resort municipality mayors, looking to see sort of a pre-budget meeting on where Ministry of Tourism was going. And of course, from that, I think the biggest kind of I'll just say impact, I don't know if it's positive or negative yet, but Mountain Resorts branch is moving over to Ministry of Tourism from Flinroe. Not sure how that's going to work yet, given the amount of resources that Flinroe had in terms of fleet and office space and things of that nature. February 28th, I had a meeting with VCF regarding the Articles of Incorporation. March 1st, I was pleased to do an introduction to Borealis with our interim CEO, Mrs. Hadford. And March 3rd, had a Robson Valley Region Steering Committee meeting, really looking to dive into some tangible outcomes this year in terms of marketing materials there. March 4th, had a Northern Regional call with the newly Municipal Affairs Minister, Nathan Collins, and along for the ride was Citizen Services Minister, Lisa Bear, hinting at today's announcement. Boy, she can be tight-lipped when she needs to be. March 7th, had a phone call with our community liaison at Trans Mountain regarding some local healthcare impacts and what they're doing to try to mitigate some of those. Later, I had a discussion again with Northern Health regarding professional housing, and then joined Councillor Pearson as a member of the public at the plethora of VCF and VIP board meetings yesterday, and also was able to make an introduction to them with Mrs. Hadford. And then today's announcement, drum roll, the Federal Ministry of Rural Economic Development and the BC Ministry of Citizen Services have signed a funding agreement just shy of $1 billion for the next 7 years to ensure that by the end of that time, all of rural Canada will be connected in one way, shape, or form. And looking forward to probably mid next year when Telesat rolls out. They're another Starlink style company, Canadian. They've actually secured a lower bandwidth, gives them more transport capability. So looking forward to that. Motion to receive. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson. Questions, comments on the reports? Councillor Blanchette?
You mentioned that you had talked to Trans Mountain about some health concerns and what they were doing. Did they give you an answer on what they were doing?
Yeah, we're significantly shy on nursing staff right now. So really having an impact on weekend availability of our emergency department. They have actually offered to fund some nursing staff, but it comes with a lot of complications. You have unions, you have collective bargaining agreements about to expire. What does it look like to bring staff in from what could be identified as a private sector into a public sector? There's some complications there. It's not, and there are some frustrations on both sides on how quick and how fast and how slow and how complicated it can be. So no concrete answers. Hoping to follow up with NHA on that.
Okay. Thanks.
Councillor Pearson, on the personal healthcare records, how does that differ from, say, the BC services card and what I can access on my phone?
It's very similar in information, except this is local based. So it is basically driven through our clinic staff in the fact that you're able to connect with a local physician for booking appointments. I think the intent is for it to become a two-way system where you can actually have an online conversation with a physician without an in-person appointment. Other than that, yeah, it's very similar in the fact that your medical records are fully accessible, and between medical health authorities, where in the past, when you went to visit in Kamloops, your records weren't carried over. So, yeah, it's an exciting opportunity. I mean, to have that functionality, and it's in its infancy, so there's a lot of bugs to work out. I mean, it's a bit of a challenge to navigate through the system yet, but we're working with a small group to get signed up and get that worked out before it goes full scale and availability.
That's really exciting.
I can add too, is what we're also trying to do is, let's say I want to have something I want to talk to my doctor about such and such, and I know I'm going to forget. So I go into my record and I go, oh, talk to Dr. Cater about diddly-do. And then when we have our appointment, whether it's online or talking or in person, he sees that, oh, you wanted to talk about your toe or whatever. So that kind of, it's your own little record that you're going to carry around like an earring or whatever it is. And you can just plug in and there's all your stuff, you know, no matter where you go.
And one of the things that I've sort of advocated for too is the ability for advocacy, where if you have an elderly parent or children, you can have access to their records to be able to monitor and stuff like that. And because there's a lot of people out there that need an advocate when dealing with the medical profession. So
Good idea. You'll recall, Councillor Blanchette, we started this conversation with then Minister of Health, Terry Lake, so many years ago.
I still have the video in the folder.
Very cool. Any further questions, comments on reports? Motion to, all in favor of receipt? It's carried. 14.1, we do have some time for public comments this evening on items considered by council as part of the approved agenda. Are there any public comments this evening? Just, state your name and your area of residence.
I'm Rashmi Narayan and I live in Valemount. And I just wanted to go back to that letter from the Valemount Seniors Housing Society that wasn't able to get addressed. There's a couple of things there. One was the invitation to the open house. I just wanted to make sure you guys are able to come. I know the regional district director is planning to be there as well. The other was I think there might be a way to work around it. They were okay with getting a letter from the senior staff or the CAO. So I'll just find out about timeline and how urgently they need it and be in touch with the office staff.
That'd be great.
Okay.
And yes, March 10th, March 10th?
Yeah, Thursday.
Yeah, it's in 7 o'clock, it's in
Yep.
the calendar.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you. Any further public comments this evening? Mr. Peters?
Michael Peters from Valemount. I just wanted to speak on the BC Parks plan, and perhaps not as positively as I'd like to. As both a resident and a member of the media, there has been very little information given. I've been trying since the flooding of last July to get access to the area, to get photos of the area, to get an interview with Mr. Engels about the project. They have been very closed in terms of providing any information whatsoever, any access to the media, any photographs that I could be using in terms of creating some sort of a story for this. This is as they said today, a $2 million, $2+ million revenue generator for the community of Valemount and the surrounding area. It's a very serious matter. Right now we have the pipeline and that's filling a lot of the void, but you have to remember most of the private bed and breakfast, for example, are charging $150 a day through the summer, and they're booked from May right through till the end of September usually. Well, $150 a day, if they're charging $2,000 or $3,000 to the pipeliners, is a third of what they would normally be getting in terms of revenue there. So there's still some suffering in terms of economic benefit, and I urge council to press for as much resources and action that can happen in terms of this. It's not just a trail system that we're, sad to not be able to hike. It's an important revenue generator for the community. And it's also a world-class, as they said themselves, a world-class destination that we're no longer able to market effectively for the next 3 or 4 years. That's a long time. So I just wanted to point that out, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Are there any public comments online? Are we? Okay, thank you. Motion to receive public comment. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson. All in favor? Received. Under item 15.1, we do have a notice to proceed in camera for consideration of one item per section 91C of the community charter to discuss matters related to labor relations and other employee relations. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you all.